UFC Fight Night Tuivasa versus Tybura is this weekend. We've got your best bets / your parlay of the week if you're feeling a little bit frisky coming right up, baby. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the 10-7 MMA. I'm your boy DS, and welcome to another episode of your UFC best bets / parlay if you're feeling a little bit frisky. We've got a whatever card this weekend, but there's still potentially some money to be made, right? Of course, I'm talking about the main event of Tuivasa versus Tybura. We've got 13 fights on the docket. I just want to go real quick into how I do this. If you haven't been here before, I kind of go through the entire card, give you my thoughts in general of what fights I like. As far as this is all from a betting perspective, obviously. So what fights I like from a betting perspective, what fights I'm staying away from, and why. So I'm not going to give you a full breakdown. If you haven't, check out our full breakdown videos. And of course, if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. Make sure to like this video. If you fucking hate me, go ahead and tell me in the comments. That's fine too. You can also find us on Instagram at the 10-7MMA. We've got cute photos with fighters and things like that. You know, we're just cute like that. Anyway, let's dive right into it. Like I said, 13 fights on the docket, and I've got a juicy one. I've got a juicy parlay / again, another thing I want to say. I'm going to give you my best bets, right? If you want to feel frisky and parlay them, go for it, okay? Some odds are better than others. You know how this shit works. Anyway, diving right into it. First fight of the night, we've got Chad Anheliger. He's taking on newcomer Charalampos Grigoriou. This fight can go either way. Charalampos Grigoriou has a lot of power. Chad Anheliger is much older, but I mean, skill for skill, he might be the better fighter in my opinion. So I'm going to stay away from this fight. I don't know how it's going to go. There's a 13-inch reach advantage on the side of Charalampos Grigoriou. So I can't bet it. He's got a lot of power. He's very live for the knockout. At the same time, though, as the fight goes on, Chad Anheliger, his chances drastically increase if we see a second and third round. So I'm staying away from this one for all intents and purposes. Moving on. Next fight is actually supposed to be Thiago Moises versus Mitch Ramirez. There we go. Thiago Moises versus Mitch Ramirez. We got Thiago Moises coming in at -375, taking on UFC debutant Mitch Ramirez. Like I said, Mitch Ramirez making his UFC debut. He actually got knocked the fuck out on the Contender Series. He's got some power. He's got a cool story. He was a drug addict and all this stuff. None of that's going to help you in the cage. Thiago Moises, I feel like people have been kind of sleeping on him a little bit. He got messed up by BSD. That's fine. He just fought Dustin Poirier, obviously, and was arguably winning that fight early on. Thiago Moises just so much better on the ground. I am going to go ahead and bet this one. I'm going to take Thiago Moises on the money line. Earlier when I checked the odds, it was -400 something Thiago Moises. So that line is getting a little bit tighter, which for me and what I'm looking to do on this card, I actually do like that. So I am going to take Thiago Moises on the money line. I'm not going to pick a finish just because why, the odds aren't great, but I think it's a good parlay piece. So the ground game is just so much better. Mitch Ramirez, could he get a knockout? Sure, but he just has so much less experience coming off a knockout too. Props to him for taking a fight on short notice. I just can't pick him here. I like Thiago Moises on the money line. Moving on. Next fight. Now we've got Corey McKenna. She's taking on Jacqueline Amorim. Listen, this is an interesting fight. Corey McKenna has the shortest reach in the UFC. For me, Jacqueline Amorim, skill for skill again, could potentially be the better fighter. Maybe not, though. Corey McKenna, I think, is the real deal. She does have such a short reach. To see almost a 10-inch reach advantage or disadvantage for McKenna in this case at the women's 115-pound division, it is a little bit scary. So while I do think she's going to win, that's not what I'm picking here. What I am going to be picking is I am picking Corey McKenna and Jacqueline Amorim to go the distance. So I am taking over 2.5 rounds here at -200. I think this is easy money. Amorim, she's got some dangerous submissions, but I almost feel like she's not strong enough. Like we saw in the Sam Hughes fight, she wasn't strong enough to get the finish, even when she had it locked in. So I'm very, very confident on this going over 2.5 rounds. Moving on, next fight of the night, we've got Joshua Kulibao, who I really like, and Danny Silva, who I really like. Listen, man, this is going to be an absolute banger. This is a fight where I'm just going to have my little drink, take some popcorn, have a couple snacks, maybe, whatever. Certainly going to keep my eyes peeled to it, but this is not what I'm going to be betting, man. These are two dangerous guys. Josh Kulibao, a lot of power. Danny Silva, puts on a hell of a pace. So this is just too risky for me. Danny Silva, it's a tough fight for him to be debuting in the UFC, but I think he's pretty good, man. And Josh Kulibao is also really good, as the 11-2-1 record shows. This is just one that I'm going to stay away from. Moving on, next fight of the night, we've got Ode. We actually have on our Instagram a fun video with Ode Osborne. If you haven't, go ahead and check that out at the 10-7 MMA, you mother. And Ode Osborne is, of course, taking on Jafel Filio. This is at flyweight. Listen, man, I'm just not super impressed by Ode Osborne. I really like the odds on this one for Jafel Filio, quite frankly. -155. I am going to be taking him on the money line here. As a straight bet, I like it. As a parlay piece, I like it. Jafel Filio has underrated striking. And, I mean, we've seen what he's able to do in the submissions. He almost had Mokaev finished. He tore up his knee. Mokaev just didn't want to tap. Ode Osborne, he kind of has a weakness on the ground, man. If you want to get real frisky, go ahead and bet Jafel Filio by sub. I think that's actually very live. I just really like the odds at -155, even on the money line. I'm sure you'd get plus money on the sub, but I just don't want to risk that. I could see it going to decision too. I just think Jafel Filio is a level above Ode Osborne, and I'm taking him on the money line, baby. Moving on, next fight of the night, we've got Josiane Nunes with the boozy fade. She's taking on Chelsea Chandler, who, of course, ran the fuck across the cage last time against Norma Dumont, thick-ass Norma Dumont. I was very, very close to betting this one, man. Josiane Nunes, tiny, but throws absolute fucking bombs. I like her, man. I like her. Chelsea Chandler, yes, we saw her run away, so that tells you maybe a little bit about the mentality and kind of the cut of her jib, if you will, brother. But just a little too risky for me. I could see Chelsea Chandler being, well, she is much bigger, heftier, it's just a little too risky for me, especially in a women's fight. Very close, though. I was very, very close to betting Josiane Nunes on the money line. -148 is not bad. I do think that she's going to win. I'm trying to keep it safe. So I'm going to skip it. Moving on. Next fight of the night, we, of course, have Mike Davis finally making his goddamn return, man. Mike Davis, if you haven't seen any Mike Davis fights, do yourself a favor and go check him out. The dude is an absolute specimen. He's jacked, he's fast, he's explosive, he's got great wrestling. He's got it all. He's got unbelievable striking, and he's taking on Natan Levy. And Natan Levy, he throws some crazy stuff. I just don't see him doing that against a monster of a human being like Mike Davis. The only way I could see Natan Levy having any chance in this is if it goes to the ground. But Mike Davis, I think, is going to be so much physically stronger, and the wrestling is just so goddamn good. I feel like if it goes to the ground, it'll be Mike Davis that gets it there. The odds aren't great. -455, coming off a long hiatus. This is one of the riskier bets that I'm taking. I am taking Mike Davis on the money line, to be quite honest with you. I'm not a huge Natan Levy fan, and I really like Mike Davis. If you're going to drop anything if you're going to make this a parlay, if you're going to drop anything, this might be the one, because it's not going to give you that much more, and it's a little risky, especially, like I said, coming off a very long hiatus again. But I just think he's got it, man. I almost picked him by finish, but I am taking him on the money line at -455 here. So, moving on. Next fight, we've got GM3, who's still doing his goddamn thing at middleweight. He's taking on Brian Barberena. Another fight I was very, very close to betting. -238. I just don't quite love the odds. If it was -100 something, I think I would pick GM3 here. I think he's very live for a late finish too. So if you want to pick like a third round sub, sprinkle a little bit on that. I don't mind that at all. But, Brian Barberena is a tough guy. GM3, a little bit of a slow starter. We're talking about heavy, 185-pound guys. They're both going to be over probably 200 pounds in the cage at that point. I'm just going to skip it, man. I'm going to skip it. I do like the fight, though. Moving on. Next fight of the night, we've got Dino Bam Bam's girl, Pannie Kianzad, and she's taking on Macy Chiasson. And this is a rematch. The first fight was won by Macy Chiasson by rear naked choke. This is an interesting one, man. It's just, it's a little risky in my opinion. I think Pannie Kianzad has some of the best boxing in the division, very quietly. Macy Chiasson is going to have such a distinct size advantage. And on the ground, we've seen Macy Chiasson taking fights to the ground more. I think that'll really benefit her. Pannie Kianzad doesn't really throw any kicks and things like that. But that boxing is scary, man. And it's a women's fight. It's a rematch, or there are going to be some emotions and things like that. It's just too risky for me to bet. I'm skipping this one. Moving on. Next fight of the night. We've got Christian C-Rod Rodriguez. He is taking on Isaac Dulgarian. Man, Isaac Dulgarian's a goddamn beast. And listen, C-Rod in his own right is really, really good, but he's moving up a weight class, and C-Rod has had trouble making weight at 135. Now he's moving up to 145. It's his first fight there that we've seen in the UFC. Usually he's the bigger guy, man. So this gives me a lot of pause, right? Isaac Dulgarian, I expect him to be the more physically imposing guy. And Isaac Dulgarian's pretty much good everywhere from what we've seen, man. He doesn't have a lot of experience, only 6-0, but super strong, physically strong. I expect him to be the physically stronger guy. He's got a ton of power. He's got vicious ground and pound. I'm taking him on the money line, man. Minus 198. I don't mind that at all. Christian Rodriguez is a good fighter. We have a picture with him at the 107 MMA on our Instagram. Check that out if you haven't yet. But yeah, I like C-Rod, man, and I like what he did against Raul Rosas, and against Cameron Simon. Obviously, he's a bit of a prospect killer at this point, but moving up against a super dangerous guy, I think it's just kind of a bad matchup for him. I am going to take Isaac Dulgarian on the money line on this one, guys. Next fight. Moving on. We've got Kennedy Nzechukwu taking on Ovince St. Preux. I don't have a ton to say about this fight. Why is it a thing? Why is it happening? Kennedy Nzechukwu, obviously, we know he has a questionable chin at times, but OSP is 40 years old. He looked washed for the last 2 years. Last win was against Shogun Rua, who was washed in his own right at that point. Probably should have already been retired. This is one of the locks of the card for me, man. I think Kennedy is very clearly going to get the knockout here. I'm taking Kennedy Nzechukwu by KO. The odds being minus 700, being only minus 190 for the KO. I kind of love that. I really do. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I almost picked the round. I almost said first or second round knockout because the odds are even a little bit better at that point, obviously. But Kennedy being a little bit of a slow starter, I could see him not getting it in the first. Maybe it's a second round knockout. I think it's very clear cut that he will get the knockout here. So that's what I'm rolling with. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening. And this is going to be a banger, guys. Does it have a lot of name value in terms of, being a co-main event? Certainly not. And it's kind of bullshit. But I think it's going to be a super fun fight. Brian Battle taking on Ange Loosa. Brian Battle minus 118, Ange Loosa plus 150. Man, I think Brian Battle's going to win this fight. Ange Loosa is really, really goddamn good, really technical, really skilled. He's pretty much good everywhere. I just trust Brian Battle's cardio a little bit more, but it's going to be close, man. And I'm not super comfortable betting the money line on this one. But what I will bet on this one is, and maybe shocking with somebody as big as Ange Loosa, two big guys at 170 in different ways. I guess they're big, but yeah, I'm taking the over 2.5 rounds, man. We've seen Brian Battle get dropped, get beat up, and then come back and win a fight. Ange Loosa just never stops, right? And both these guys are so tough. It's kind of an interesting bet, right? But I really do think that this is going to go to decision. I think it's going to be a hard-fought battle, man. And I'm going to take the over 2.5 rounds on this one at minus 210. Moving on to the main event of the evening. And of course, we've got Tai Tuivasa, fan favorite. Hopefully it's a shoey. He's taking on Marcin Tybura, who got knocked out by Tom Aspinall brutally not long ago. I do think that Tai Tuivasa is going to win this fight. But man, Tai Tuivasa is on a bit of a skid himself. It's risky, you know. Marcin Tybura is just so much more skilled on the ground. If he's able to get tied down, you know, I think he's going to win this fight. I do think Tai Tuivasa is going to get a first-round knockout here. If you're feeling frisky, you could bet that. I'm sure the odds are pretty good. I'm going to skip it, man. It's just a little bit too risky, two big-ass boys in there. I just can't do it. So that wraps up the card, all right? So if you were following along, right, I have 7 bets for you guys. And again, if you're feeling frisky, parlay them sons of bitches. If you're not, then don't do it, right? We've got some nice straight bets in there, make a little bit of money. If you are feeling frisky and you decide to parlay those 7 bets, and I can go through them real quick. So we had Thiago Moises money line versus Mitch Ramirez. We had Corey McKenna, Jacqueline Amorim going the distance. We had Jafel Filio money line over Ode Osborne. We had Mike Davis money line over Natan Levy. We had Isaac Dulgarian money line over Christian Rodriguez. We had Kennedy Nzechukwu by knockout. And then we had Brian Battle Angelusa going the distance or over 2.5, I guess, at that point. Yeah, if you parlay all them some bitches, you're getting a plus 1193. You put $100 down, you'll get back $1,193. Take that right to the fucking bank. By the way, last week, 5 out of 6 bets hit, so don't come for my neck. That's all I got for you guys today. That's all I got for you. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you think my bets are shit, if you have any suggestions of your own, let us know. Once again, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you don't follow us on Instagram, check us out at the 107MMA. And thanks for tuning in. Guys. That's all I got for you. Your boy DS out. Let's make some fucking money.